Good morning. It is 10:36 a.m. on Sunday, October 11th, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I've been puttering around on a Sunday morning, including one previous attempt to record this, and this is 5 more minutes. Because it is Sunday, I'm continuing my rewatch of The Legend of Korra, this time with Season 3, Episode 3, The Earth Queen. So this is another good episode in a good season. So let's get into it, shall we? We've got basically three plot lines to follow in this episode. We have, of course, Korra meeting the Earth Queen and starting to feel out how that relationship's going to go. We also have Mako and Bolin trying to chase down Kai. And then we also have Lord Zuko and following the, escaped prisoners villain plotline. So let's talk about Korra first. So we're on our way to Ba Sing Se, the capital of the Earth Kingdom, and all we get as a preview to the Earth Queen is Tenzin saying he's heard she can be demanding. And then, of course, what we see of the city itself, Ba Sing Se, we remember visiting there in the original series, is a walled city with different rings where there's, the outer ring, the middle ring, the upper ring. I think it's the lower ring. I can't remember now suddenly. The what we discover is that the outer ring, the most outside, is now not only the poorest ring, but it is like literally a slum now, the lower ring. And, to the point where it's like, oh gosh, that looks really awful. And then the middle ring is about the same, and then the upper ring is even more fantastic and luxurious than ever. And so it is just kind of it's a representation, really dramatically, of the growth of income inequality, right? It's like this is this is 70 years down the line, Ba Sing Se, and then we meet the Earth Queen and realize that she is not like her father. Yeah, just a refresher for anyone for whom it's been a while since the original series. We finished there with having an Earth King who frankly wasn't very interested in the day-to-day of running a kingdom, and so mostly he just trusted his advisors, which went horrifically wrong when he had an advisor that did all sorts of evil stuff. But then apparently, according to the new Earth Queen, he then let Zuko and Aang push him around, and so the new United Republic and Republic City is built on land that used to belong to the Earth Kingdom. And so even though we can certainly imagine that he granted it to them from this new Earth Queen's perspective, they tricked him and that it really ought to still be Earth Kingdom. And so obviously we have a little bit of a parallel there to like Hong Kong and China and that sort of thing. But obviously it's not interested in, like, it's not, I think, trying to be a commentary on that specific real world situation so much as it kind of evokes elements of that. And in any case, though, we certainly discover that the Earth Queen is not merely demanding, she's a tyrant. And she is very concerned about, whether her subjects are paying their taxes. And she is just as ready to scream at subjects about them getting topiary wrong in her gardens. And she clearly has everybody around her terrified of her. And she's pretty awful. Like, I think, the intent is definitely to have us immediately dislike her. And we do. It's pretty successful in that regard. And so here we have Korra showing up. Her only intent is to just say, hey, we heard reports that there are some airbenders in Ba Sing Se. We'd like to meet them and maybe see if they want to come with us. Now, we can understand how there might be some politics there, but what we get instead is her being hostile, the Earth Queen being hostile almost immediately, and basically saying, before we can even talk about that, you have to do something for me. and that is to go and collect some of my tax money that is already, that is being stored elsewhere and it needs to be brought here. But there are these barbarians who have been trying to steal it, and you need to protect it from that. And it's like, okay, all right. So Korra and Asami go together on this, but they're pretty immediately starting to feel like there's something up with this because they are attacked by, barbarians, this gang, and they defeat them, with even just the two of them are able to hold it off and protect that money. But they start to get the feeling, especially when those barbarians retreat by saying, "You're on the wrong side of this, Avatar." So like puts it, kind of like, in case anyone wasn't picking up on the subtext already, Korra is really starting to feel like, wait a minute here, like this is a lot of money coming from a poor area and traveling to a very rich area. And we start to feel like maybe that's part of why one area is poor and the other area is rich, right? Now, we don't have to get into the elements of like, oh, well, taxes, right? Blah. Taxes should be lower. But that's not, because that's not what's going on here, right? Like what's going on here is that, we've got income inequality. We've got the rich using their power to get richer while the poor get poorer. And Korra and Asami are greatly displeased about that. But from their perspective, it's another situation of like, well, okay, but, is it the Avatar's job to just solve every single world problem? I mean, it's, it's not a good situation, but they're here on a mission, right? So they do their job, they bring in the money. Korra's irritated at being used in this way. And then they return, and of course the Earth Queen is saying, oh, but there are no airbenders in Ba Sing Se. You were misinformed. And so at this point, we know, okay, not only is this lady a tyrant who's hoarding wealth and is petty and demanding, but she's also a liar, because we just don't believe her about there being no airbenders in Ba Sing Se. Like, it doesn't pass the smell test, and Korra says as much, but what are they going to do, right? Like, if they don't have the Queen's support in finding them, that makes it a little more difficult. And so Korra essentially storms off saying, well, we're going to find them on our own. But we can imagine that being very difficult if they are actively opposed by the leadership in the city, right? That's tricky. So we're not sure how that's going to go, but we've already got a very antagonistic relationship with the Earth Queen, which seems like a problem, right? And then, so sure enough, let's talk about Mako, Bolin, and Kai, right? So we have everybody coming in, and we recall from earlier episodes in this season that Mako and Bolin, their father came from Ba Sing Se originally, and so maybe they have extended family there. They suspect they probably do. And so they eventually want to meet them, but for now, they're coming up, with the Avatar. But then, Kai sees some rich folks and his thieving instincts kick in, and he slips away from the group. And Mako is, of course, not surprised. He suspected all along. That's really what Kai was all about. But, after everyone kind of discusses it, it's like, okay, well, there's a variety of reasons. Here are all the reasons we have to go after him anyway. First of all, he's just a kid and he doesn't know any better. He's our responsibility. We only have one airbender so far. We can't lose him in the very next place we go to. And it's just like, yeah, okay, all right. So we got to go after him. And plus, Bolin, he's my little bro. We got to get him, right? So they, are looking for Kai. They find him using his airbending to actually pickpocket more people. And they try to chase him down, but he gets away from them and, in fact, tricks them into boarding a train to the lower ring while having also stolen their wallets and passports. And so once they try to come back, on the train, they discover, oh no, without those passports, because apparently people from the lower ring aren't allowed to go to the middle or upper ring unless they have these official documents. So without money and without those documents, Mako and Bolin are stuck. And, we have to imagine that there is some bureaucracy for how they might eventually get in contact with everything. But that makes it even trickier if Korra has antagonized the Earth Queen, is that the mechanisms of the city government are not going to be on their side. And this is where we start getting into a corrupt government is really bad news when you end up separated from the rest of your group and you don't have cell phones. so, so they're in trouble. And then they end up sleeping on the street. They're eventually starting to talk about, like, well, how are we going to get food? Bolin is saying, well, remember what we used to do, stealing food from a fruit vendor, and the fruit looks awful, and we're just seeing more and more evidence of how bad it is here in the lower ring. But by sheer serendipity, Mako and Bolin run into one of their cousins and then an uncle and realize they have found their family, which is, one, yay, but two, oh God, this is how they live. This is awful. But we get some really nice stuff, discovering that it's not merely some family, but a lot of family. There's a lot of people, and they're excited to meet Mako and Bolin. It's very welcoming, but with the downside of they don't even know that Mako and Bolin's parents were killed. Which just raises the question, too, of, like, did they think all this time that there was just no communication at all for, like, what did they think about that? Did they think it was on purpose? They kind of hand wave a lot of that stuff because ultimately it's not important. Mako and Bolin are there now. And, they really actually enjoy reconnecting with this extended family, even as they're kind of recognizing, this doesn't seem great, it's a problem. And that is, of course, when they mention that they're looking for Kai, that's where we get the other half of the airbending mystery. Korra discovers the Earth Queen says there are none, but that doesn't sound right. And so from Mako and Bolin's story, we get the other half of that, which is our neighbor started airbending, and then the secret police came and took him away, and nobody's seen him since. And then, of course, we get the scene, it's actually at the very end of the episode, but the scene where Kai is apprehended by the secret police. What was the name of those things? The Dai. Yeah, and so we learn that not only are these airbenders being taken away to a secret prison, but apparently the intent is that they're going to become fighters for the Earth Kingdom. Eek. So now, not only is the Earth Queen antagonistic and a problem and quarrelsome, but, like, this is, definitely not just in opponent, but definite, like, bad guy territory, right? And as opposed to the previous Earth King, who seemed like he was manipulated by evil advisors, yeah, this lady seems like she knows all about all this. Yeah, so in case we were, had any inkling that we might eventually find that she's sympathetic, no, doesn't seem like it. But in the meantime, we have, of course, Lord Zuko, who goes to the North Pole and meets with Desna and Eska. So it's kind of fun seeing them again, that they're apparently now co-chiefs of the Northern Water Tribe. But Zuko and Tarlok, Korra's dad and chief of the Southern Water Tribe, they all kind of connect to say, we need to check out this secret prison that apparently Desna and Eska didn't even know about. And that is where the last of Zahir's former companions is imprisoned. And they want to check to make sure she's still safe and, like, secure, because the others have all escaped. And so, we discover that she is not merely a firebender, but she is one of the specialized firebenders able to create explosions, just like, was it Clicky Clicky Boom Man in, is that Combustion Man? And I'm just trying to remember what was Sokka called him something else. Sparky Boom Man, that's what it was. But so in fact, so we discover that this woman, Pali, is has that talent as well. And so they keep her in this ice prison because cold can prevent firebenders from bending. And that, you know, connects to what we saw in the last one where or in the last series where at the Boiling Rock prison they had these cold chambers for firebenders. So in any case, though, there's a fantastically awkward elevator ride where they're talking about who this woman is, and Lord Zuko is standing there saying, explaining this talent that she has, and says, I actually hired a guy with a similar skill to kill the Avatar back in the day. And then everyone's kind of like looking at him, and he's like, well, it didn't work. It's just fun there. But then, of course, Eska is just like, oh, yeah, well, I tried to kill Korra when she disrupted my wedding. So, it happens. And then everyone's just like, oh, and it's a lot of fun. But then, of course, we get just the hint of who Pali is. We don't really even get to see all of her, just that she sort of leans down and we just see her smiling face where she's realizing, oh, the only reason you would be coming to see me is because he's out, isn't he? I feel better already. Warmer already, I think is what she says. But yeah, so continuing to just fire on all cylinders this season, because we get a lot of character-based stuff. Mako and Bolin obviously are having this plot that takes them down to where they meet their family and everything, but it's connecting with them as brothers and their different perspectives, but shared history. And like that all works. And also just like their different perspectives, specifically in how they look at Kai, who is really this sort of representation of who they used to be as kids. And so, Mako is the one more inclined to say, I know how much of a problem this kid is because I know all his tricks because I used to do them. So I can see right through him and know that he's really up to no good. Whereas Bolin is more like, we know that we were like that because we came from such hard times and we've changed now. So we need to help him change too. And he, so them each seeing that in the other is really kind of cool. And then, of course, in the trip to go get the tax money, we have Korra and Asami clicking together and being good partners there because those characters just work. And it's good stuff. And yeah, I think this is a really good episode. So next week, we will talk about episode 4, In Harm's Way. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.